We need failures to show us that we failed and that we made a mistake and like that wasn't the right decision for our
The
business at that
lesson. It's
time.
the
Yeah.
lesson, right?
What was the lesson that we're learning and how can we pivot? It comes back to the efficiency statement I made earlier. You make that decision. It could be a failure. It could be a mistake. It could be a lesson. And we move forward. We make the change. We've learned this isn't for me right now. What can I do next? And I think it comes with I held a lot of guilt after closing down Bar by the Bay and not selling it, that I was a failure and that I would never own a business that was successful. But now that it's been quite some time, a few years, I'm like, that wasn't a failure. I sold for profit. I sold all my fitness equipment. Yes, it doesn't live on, but that's okay too, because it lives on within me and that's part of my story. And that's the impactful part.
Welcome to the In Factor, where we explore the stories and mindset of entrepreneurial thinkers, people who lean into uncertainty, follow their curiosity, and build meaningful businesses along the way. I'm Dr. Rebecca White, and today's guest lives at the intersection of cultures, creativity, and impact. Whitney Dueñas Richardson is the founder of Global Sprouts, a company on a mission to foster curiosity and cross-cultural awareness in young children. Through thoughtfully designed products and experiences, Global Sprouts helps families and educators introduce global learning at an early age, encouraging empathy, openness, and the kind of perspective that can shape a new generation of global citizens. Whitney's passion for her work is deeply personal. She was raised by parents from two very different backgrounds, one rooted in rural Nebraska and the other from the vibrant island of Guam. This blend of identities gave Whitney a deep appreciation for both diversity and nuance. Add to that her global travels and professional experience in education and international affairs, and you get someone uniquely positioned to help young people connect with the world beyond their immediate environment. In this conversation, Whitney shares how her personal story became the foundation for her business and why she believes early childhood is the perfect time to plant the seeds of global curiosity. We talk about the challenges of product development, staying true to your mission, and what it means to build a value-based business. And here's your mindset moment for today. New opportunities are often found at the intersection of cultures, of disciplines, of experiences we don't usually think to combine. Innovation rarely comes from diving deeper into one lane. It often emerges when we step outside of what's familiar. Whitney's story reminds us that exploring outside the regular, whether that means traveling to new places or simply asking different questions, can lead to powerful new ways of thinking, learning, and doing business. And this is a perfect moment to share some exciting news. We're getting ready to launch the InFactor Plus. It's a new platform designed to help you build your entrepreneurial intelligence. You'll soon be able to explore hundreds of curated founder stories, discover patterns in their thinking, and apply those insights to your own journey. It's all coming soon, and we can't wait to share more with you in the few weeks ahead. But for now, let's dig into this inspiring conversation with Whitney Dueñas Richardson. Welcome to the In Factor, Whitney. So glad you could join me today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So today we have as our guest Whitney Dueñas Richardson. And I love on your LinkedIn, you list mom first, followed by travel and entrepreneur. You've got a digital marketing background. And we were talking about your name, Dueñas, and your background. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and about your history and your ancestry, Dueñas.
Yes. So I am a Chamorro and Dutch mom to a beautiful little girl who's 2 years old. I was, um, my family has Dutch and Chamorro roots. So two totally different sides of the world came together and met in Texas, had me, and then shortly after we moved back home to the island of Guam. And I lived there for a majority of my life until my senior year of high school, and I moved to the States, to North Carolina, and quickly became wit from Guam within 30 days because everyone was fascinated that this Chamorro girl is now in the east coast of North Carolina, and they had no idea where Guam was, who Chamorros were. And that's been kind of my identity for the past 12 years now, almost 13.
Did that have anything to do with the military? My uncle was in the military and he lived on Guam for
So
a
both
number
my
of years.
parents were in the military, but because my dad's from the island, he wanted his kids to be raised there. He jumped around a lot as a kid because my papa was also in the military, but full Chamorro just wanted to raise his kids where he was from.
So for our listeners, tell us a little about the Tomorrow population.
Chamorro. Yeah.
Tomorrow population.
So our culture is so built on community. So every weekend, my favorite thing growing up was it's, and then moving to the States, it was like an eye opener is when I hear party, I think like 300, 400 people minimum. In the States, people are like, oh, a party's like 5, 6, maybe 20, 30, 50. No, so that was a huge adjustment. Everything's a fiesta. Everything can be celebrated. We have villages. But that's just what we call our towns for the most part. And every village has their own fiesta on a separate month, depending on, it's really based around, I believe, the Catholic Church and whoever the saint of that church is. And we have fiestas and we have these big parties. And when you see your elderly, you give them amen. So either kiss on the cheek for women or you bring the palm to your forehead for older gentlemen. And every Sunday we would go to church and hang out afterwards and I'd eat my spam and rice and eggs and learn some Chamorro words. It was really fun. We spent a lot of our time on the beach, snorkeling. On Guam, it's really cool because the waves break probably 100 yards out. So when you see the break, that's where the reef is. And you can see the sharks, the black tip and white tip sharks just jumping each other. And it's really cool. There's so much wildlife. I love being up in the water and around the waters. Pilates are sea cucumbers, and I was actually writing a whole article on them the other day because as kids we didn't know any better at first, and when you throw them, they they pee for lack of better words, so no one wanted to ever get hit by them. And I completely understand it's not a good thing to do of throwing these sea creatures, but that was what we did as children. So and then once we learned it was bad, we stopped doing it. And our parents would always scold us. And we'd be like, oh, it's so funny though. There's like these cucumbers in the air. It was just a very genuine and deeply rooted in community. You're close with all of your cousins and family and friends. The island is tiny, 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 three
Right.
miles wide by, I believe it's 8 miles long or 12 miles long. So it's small. It's super small. So everyone knows everyone. And that's just, everything's expensive because we're importing everything. It's a
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
beautiful environment.
Yeah. I can remember my cousins, they moved from California to Guam and they had to go to high school. I think it was middle school or high school there. And I think it was a real culture shock for them because they had been, I think, in San Diego and, around the bigger city, I guess. So did the Tomorrow people originate there in Guam or on a number of islands? What's that? It's the native people there, right?
It
Was it
is.
Guam where they originated?
Yeah. So the Northern Mariana Islands is composed of 4 different islands, I want to say. There's Chamorros on Saipan, Tinian, Rota, and Guam are the 4 islands. And they're all kind of sprinkled within that chain.
I see. So, so you list mom travel entrepreneurs. So obviously your childhood, played a great influence in who you are and who you've become. And, very interesting that you come from, two cultures, that came together. And, we'll get into that a little bit more. But you are the founder, as of last year, of Global Sprouts, right? Which
I
I think
am.
is a cultural themed learning kit. So how did all this come together? You've also got a background in digital marketing. I saw that you moved around from, I saw North Carolina. I think that's where you went to high school, North Carolina. And then I saw maybe Oklahoma. And then you moved around to Virginia, which I spent a lot of time in. We've talked about that. And now you're here in Tampa, Florida. And I think we both just realized we're here in the same thing. So did the military play a role in you moving around as well? Or were you just passionate about experiencing other cities and locations?
Oh, I am passionate about traveling. I've been to 46 countries. I hopefully will hit 50 by the end of 2025. I was very fortunate living on the island of Guam to explore all of Asia growing up. We would do small little trips to other countries because Guam is really central and a quick anywhere from an hour to 5 hours to see a lot of different places and different people. And another fun fact about Guam is our main tourism are Japanese. Japan, like our big like country tourism connector is Japan. And I was always fascinated with understanding where other people are from and what their stories were because I had such a unique story. Holland and Guam are two separate parts of the world. Like crazy that those two came together, right? So I was always fascinated by that. I was able to travel to, I believe it was 15 countries by the time I had left the island of Guam. And then when we moved to the States, we moved to North Carolina for a job for my mom. It was my senior year of high school. They convinced me that it was going to be great. I was going to love it. I was going to be by the beach. And I remember walking out to the beach the first time and the water was so brown. And I was like, Guam had crystal clear waters. You guys totally did not tell me the truth. And so being on the island or moving to North Carolina, then I went to college at the University of Oklahoma. I graduated high school at 16. I had my BBA by the time I was 19 from OU, Boomer Sooner. And then I moved to Europe. I wanted to understand more of my Dutch roots and my family over there. Once I was done living in Italy for 6 months and traveling all over Europe, I think I hit my next 15 countries while I was over there. And then I moved back to Virginia, launched my first business, a fitness studio. In between that, I got into a life altering or life changing car crash where the first hospital I was sent to tried to send me home 5 days after my 18th birthday with a male police officer and said, "You're fine." And I don't recollect or remember any of it. Asked him for a second opinion. He got me to Birmingham. They said, "You're dying from internal bleeding if we don't operate on you immediately." So I got my life saving operation and went to Virginia, opened up a fitness studio that had infrared heating because I found that that was the best way to heal me internally. And that was fun. It was right before COVID. We launched in 2019. I sold in April of 2021 all of my fitness equipment because no one was buying gyms at the time, but everyone wanted to work out at home. So I made 400% profit. I met my now husband and we came to Clearwater, Florida on January 1st. And I said, wow, it is 73 degrees and the water is crystal clear blue. We need to move here. So we packed up our stuff a few months later. I think it was that July and moved down to Florida. And then I had my daughter and I found there was a really big disconnect in teaching the future generation about other people and how can we celebrate one another without tearing each other down and how can we be culturally curious and empathetic and understanding. And my 14-year-old sister looked at me this past January and said, "Oh, I'm 14. When do I get my Louis Vuitton?" And I said, I was 14 on Guam and going surfing. I was not asking my parents for a Louis Vuitton. We lived two totally different lives. And I obviously told her no, she is not getting a Louis Vuitton. And I decided that it's up to us as parents to raise the next generation to be empathetic and understanding and hopefully not ask their parents for a Louis Vuitton at 14. My sister was 2 when we moved off island, so she didn't really get to witness the Chamorro culture and being on Guam and part of life. I mean, we don't have Chick-fil-A's, we didn't have Lululemons, we definitely didn't have TJ Maxx. We had Ross that was good on like a Tuesday when they got the delivery in, and then like not good any other day. So we like had very limited supplies of what we had access to, and that was totally fine. It was just the way of life, and you didn't think of anything else really. And so I sat down and I had a few of my really close friends look at me and say, why would you ever teach your child Spanish? Why should she be bilingual? I have kids that come into my classroom and they don't even know English. And it kind of took me aback because I'm not a true American woman. Everyone knows that about me. I eat, live, and breathe. You know I'm Chamorro and you know I'm Dutch. I'm very proud of where I'm from, and I'm very proud to be an American. And all of that can be true in the same sense that I know Chamorro, which is a really cool Austronesian language that blends together some like Tagalog words, which is the language of the Philippines, some Spanish words, and then some other words from other languages into one beautiful language. And not many people speak Chamorro in America. I mean, there's not many Chamorros out there. So I wanted to teach my daughter, we're living in America, Spanish is the second most spoken language here. Why should she not know it? It's proven that kids that know multiple languages think better. They're able to switch between two languages. They have faster reflexes. They can understand things. And so I was like, wow, this is crazy that someone told me I shouldn't teach my kids Spanish. I never thought ever that I would hear that. And I guess that was just me loving traveling and not even thinking about how others might think. Then I had a friend that I was like, I want to teach Americans about the Virgin Islands. There's the US, there's the British Virgin Islands. And I had a friend say, do they even have any type of culture there? And that's when I was like, okay, we have a problem. There's culture everywhere, no matter if their main revenue is tourism or not. There's people that live in these places and there's something to celebrate. And it all came to fruition when one day my daughter came into my bedroom and said, hola, and she had her Spanish flamenco red silk scarf and she was doing the flamenco dance. And I was like, this is what we're here for. We're here to teach children about other cultures and just choose one thing. Maybe it's little, maybe it's one word, but incorporate just something so small into our day-to-day lives to make a difference.
So what a great story. And there's a lot I want to dig into there. You know, but before I do that, I want to ask you, what is a cultural themed learning kit? So I assume I can sign up for this, and maybe I even want to send some to my grandchildren. So I'll have to check it out. So tell our audience what it includes.
Yeah, this is really fun to me. A culture kit, you can subscribe or you can have a one-off purchase. So if you're interested in learning about Guam or just Australia, you can buy the kits one off. And in every kit, you have an educational booklet with learning games, whether it's math, literacy, reading, different types of activities your children can do. And it's for ages 2 and up. There's coloring pages, there's board games. It's really immersive for the entire family. So you have the educational booklet. You have a story that follows our mascot, Globey, around that culture with local children. You have toys and cultural artifacts, and boxes vary depending on 2 to 3 cultural artifacts and toys. You get a flag. You get a recipe to cook with your kids to have that hands-on immersive experience. Comes with lesson plans. Me reading you the story if you need help pronouncing or enunciating, that always tricks me. Pronouncing the words. And you also receive craft kits. So some type of craft to really indulge yourself in the culture. And the fun part about each of these kits, they're jam-packed. They're like this big, 12 by 9 by 3. They're filled to the brim. And every piece of the box really incorporates project-based learning. And I want to touch on that a little bit more because in the world of AI right now, we have access to certain things. Global Sprout specifically focuses on larger cultures and smaller cultures because we don't have resources for those smaller cultures. So we partner with someone from those places to provide this box for American learners. And project-based learning is important because we're teaching kids how to do better and be better with access to the knowledge at their fingertips. And the way that we do that is through critical thinking and problem-solving skills. AI is wonderful. I love AI. However, if we don't teach our kids how to solve problems and think critically, we're failing them as a whole as well.
So are these age themed as well? I mean, age staged?
They are. So the kits right now, the boxes are for 2 through 8. And then we're launching in Q2 of next year games for older children to learn about cultures without having once we've noticed that once they're like 9, 10, the stuffed animals aren't as fun sometimes. The little trinkets aren't as fun. So we've expanded to launching board games so that it's a fun experience to teach about cultures.
So, as you told your story and you discussed all the different experiences that you'd had moving around, how do you think your childhood actually influenced the way that you have lived your life?
Every bit and piece of it. Um, being on an island that you're so far away from America. I mean, it's 24 hours. So seeing different people, understanding others. I'll tell you a very impactful story is I was in the Philippines and I must have been 6 years old. I saw a gentleman with no legs on a skateboard in the city, in the like town center of Manila. And the next day we went 30 minutes to the suburbs. I saw the same gentleman on the skateboard. And what that showed me was he was so happy no matter where he was. He was living his best life. I every day since then, I wake up in the morning and one of my mantras is I'm so grateful to have 2 working legs. I'm happy to be alive. I can figure out whatever hard things I go through. So finding those little glimpses of beauty and happiness in all these different places and all types of walks of life. When I was in Europe, I was on a free walking tour. I met a gentleman in Dublin in Ireland, and we still are connected to this day. And he was from Ohio, and I was from, I guess, Oklahoma, so many different places at that point in my life. But we like met, and I have these connections all over the world now. So launching Global Sprouts, I'm able to hire strong people from every culture to make sure that our boxes are culturally accurate and appreciative. And so using my network and understanding where people are from and just seeing the happiness, no matter how little or how much people have, has proven to me that it doesn't matter. The end goal is just as important as the steps it took to get there. And that's what drives me and proves to me that seeing others makes me empathetic and curious and wants to learn more.
Yeah, and I hear gratitude in there too. And I'm sure going through your own near death experience in the car wreck also probably had an influence there. I think it's fascinating how, as I've talked to, hundreds of entrepreneurs, their stories, their life stories, their childhood, the culture that they grew up in, so many things influence what they ultimately do. So one of the questions I want to ask you is, you made this transition from working for others to work to your own business. And did you start your business as a side hustle while you were still working, or did you just make a clean break and say, "I'm going to go do this"? And either way, what was your mindset when you were thinking about all that?
I love this question. I thrive on this question. So one of my first business, Bar by the Bay, that was I've had 2 full-time jobs. I'm 26. I've been in the workforce since I was 16 when I graduated high school. Um, I'm a cliff jumper. I'm half proud of that, half not proud. I I love to jump off the cliff and figure out how to scale my way back up. I I see a vision and I can execute a plan for that vision, but I have to jump off the cliff first because what I find the most fun and the most propelling me forward is figuring out the process along the way and not sitting down and thinking too much into things. I'm an efficient thinker. I like to make a decision and run with it. A great example I use there is the nail salon. There's too many times that I'm beside a woman and she's like, I don't know the difference between the dark blue and the dark blue. And I'm like, just pick a blue. You can always change it in 2 weeks. Just pick the blue. And so with this studio, I had my first full-time job for 6 months and I ended up in a dark room and my body was just like, Whitney, this isn't for you. And actually, I'm going to tell another story first. I remember being 10 years old on the island of Guam, and every time we drove by a commercial parcel, I said, Mom, you got to rent that. We're going to do a business there. No plan. Every time I'd be like, we have to rent that. We have to rent it. And she would be like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. And I always had that thought, or something was for sale. And I was like, we should buy that. And that should be a real estate investment for us. Or my mom wanted to have a consignment thrift store. And I was like, I'll do everything for you. I just need you to buy the place. And like, I've always had that thought process. I wanted to do something bigger and better. I wanted to launch a business and figure it out. And I surrounded myself with people from the time I was 10 until now that were business owners. And I always ask the deeper questions. How did you get to where you are? What can I do to help you? Is there anything I can do this week? Can I tell 3 people? That's my favorite thing. Let me tell 3 people about your business. What are some facts I can share? And so that was always in the back of my head. Fast forward to the fitness studio. I was in that dark room for 3 days and I bought a name, a very limiting name nonetheless, Bar by the Bay, Barre. And I ended up being a spin, bar, and yoga infrared studio. So the name was no longer applicable. And I bought the name. I signed a commercial lease and then I sat down and looked at my bank account. I was like, oh, Whitney, you have like $5,000. Like, this isn't going to get you anywhere. So I called my dad and I was like, look, I have this great idea. I wasn't being served and I wasn't fulfilled doing marketing for a roofing company at the time. I'm fulfilled in some ways, but my health is going downwards. I can see my spiraling. I'm not treating my body with the respect it needs. I just went through the car crash not too long ago. I need something locally in Virginia that I didn't necessarily have. So I launched the fitness studio and I thought I could do it without making any money. I really did. I thought I was going to open it. No one knew boutique fitness studios in Newport News, Virginia. It was a brand new concept. We didn't even have a Pure Bar yet, which is a national franchise. And I was like, oh, there's so many people are going to walk through the door. Well, that didn't happen. I learned that I should never lower my price to get people through the door, which I did. I learned a lot of lessons and I eventually started contracting for marketing. I had been doing marketing in high school. I was growing up in the realm of social media. So I really learned it. I learned it quick. I learned it fast. I started contracting and freelancing. And it all comes full circle because I had the studio and I started working at Ferguson, which thank you to my roofing and gutter job because I started marketing and construction. Got the job at Ferguson, met my now marketing advisor, but then the social media manager, Caitlin, and started doing freelance work for Ferguson. Ended up selling the studio, moving to Florida, transitioning to full-time with the team. And then ended up getting laid off after my wedding when I was 5 months pregnant, which was not fun. And man, does that send you into a spiral. And I said, you know what? I'm never going to put my fate in another person's hands again. I started doing digital marketing. I had like a very small agency, AKA me. I was the agency and I did clients for the next 3 years. And then I saved up a bunch of money. And that was one of my learnings from Bar by the Bay was I'm going to have enough money to afford a team for the first year, make all my products, bootstrap it, get it done. And last September, we flooded from Hurricane Helene and we got a golf cart payout, which helped me get to that final goal. and I launched Global Sprouts. And it was Thanksgiving night. I stayed up until 3 a.m. in the morning, honestly trying to find a culture box for my child. And there was nothing out there that talked about the people. Everything talked about the country. Go to France, go to Paris, see the Eiffel Tower. But I wanted to know, what do Parisian kids do? What does their day to day look like? Nothing existed. And so after I did that research, I like 8 hours of research, I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to bring it to the market, and I'm going to travel with my kid and show her the world. And through her experiences, we're going to write books about it. We're going to sell the books. And then when she's older, I'm going to give her this gift of all these books, that the places that she's traveled to. And that was a long answer for your short question, but
Well, I loved where you started with this. You said you're a cliff jumper. So, let's talk a little bit about the mindset around that. When you jump off of cliffs, you're sometimes going to get hurt. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have failures. How do you think about failure, and where did that come from? The way that you process failure? Because obviously you've had some. You don't get somewhere, without, you don't get to success without some failure along the way.
we need failures. We need failures to show us that we failed and that we made a mistake, and like that wasn't the right decision for our
The
business at that
lesson.
time.
It's the
Yeah.
lesson, right? It's the lesson.
What was the lesson that we're learning, and how can we pivot? It comes back to the efficiency statement I made earlier. You make that decision. It could be a failure. It could be a mistake. It could be a lesson, failure or a lesson. And we move forward. We make the change. We've learned this isn't for me right now. What can I do next? I think it comes with, I held a lot of guilt after closing down Bar by the Bay and not selling it, that I was a failure and that I would never own a business that was successful. But now that it's been quite some time, a few years, I'm like, that wasn't a failure. I sold for profit. I sold all my fitness equipment. Yes, it doesn't live on, but that's okay too, because it lives on within me, and that's part of my story. And that's the impactful part. And
And
failing is just,
you've learned from that and can apply it to what you're doing now.
yes. I really thought that when people said, oh, like your first business, if it doesn't work out, like you're learning, and then your second will get better and your third will get better. And then by the fifth business, you'll be a huge success. And I was like, no way. This first one's going to be that. And now that I'm on my second true business, I'm like, whoa, like those lessons I learned from the first one, in brick and mortar versus product and e-commerce, are totally different, but you learn so much. And you don't realize it until you look back and you reflect, and you're like, wow, like this is really cool of how much I did learn from the first go around.
Being a cliff jumper, and I'm using your words, but I love
Do
it.
it.
You're willing to take on risk. And, I just wonder, how do you think about failure? And not failure, but how do you think about fear in general? And I think most people have something they fear. Do you have something that you fear? It sounds like you're fearless in business. Do you have fear somewhere else?
Uh, I have fears of being a bad mom and a bad wife. Not a,
It's the biggest job we've ever had, to be a mom.
yes. And
I can say,
I was raised very hyper independent and didn't have a great support system growing up with my mom. And I think that's a challenge of trying to break that generational trauma and being a difference. And I hold that very near and dear to my heart of, I just have to be 5% better. If I'm 5% better, we're doing something differently. I don't carry a lot of fear in a lot of places because I love the journey, and the journey is what gets us there. But the mom and the wife part is challenging.
yeah, I can say that too. And I'm now a grandma, so
Ooh, congrats.
yeah, I love it. My mom always said you had children so you could have grandchildren, but being a mom is taught me a lot also. But I love the way you brought together being a mom, and travel and entrepreneurship. I mean, it all has come together in a very cool way. So many of the students I work with and so many of the early stage entrepreneurs really struggle with execution. They see an opportunity, but they really have a lot of fear around taking that step, around, jumping off the cliff as you do. But I think your story can be very inspiring there, because I think it's recognizing that it's a journey and recognizing that there's so much that you can learn from it. Now you've done a lot already, and you're only in your 20s and you've already accomplished a lot. But talk a little bit about what's your vision for your company and for your professional life. I mean, what do you obviously to surround yourself with people that will follow you in your dreams or support you in your dreams. And it's never solitary, right? There's always a lot of other people. You have to have a vision. So what's your vision look like? Where are you headed, and what really matters in what you're building?
Great example is last night we were on our Monday team call, and I built the company around exiting in 10 years. And I want to exit because I want a larger corporation to be able to bring our price down, buy in bulk, and allow other families that can't necessarily afford a $50 kit to afford it. I wanted to bring people from different cultures that love their cultures together and teach Americans about it, because they want to share it too. And during our Monday team meeting call last night, it was 8 or 9 p.m. for us, and we had 6 different countries represented. We had Costa Rica, Venezuela, the Philippines, Indonesia, America, and I consider Guam a country. And so there were 6 of us on the call. We have a team of 10, and I've brought together numerous women. They just happen to be women that joined the team together on this call. And we all share fun facts about where we're from, so that we're not only allowing accessibility internally within our team for us to learn about other cultures, but also for them to learn about other people that they might not have had access to before that. And I want to bring access to resources for all of those cultures together and teach kids about how impactful it can be. Like, Natty from Costa Rica was like, Pura Vida is real here. Like, something in the government might happen and we just like make memes about it and we just go on about our day, and like, it's fine. We still love each other. We love our community. And in Venezuela, Marieli was talking about, she loves riding her motorcycle to the beach, and just seeing little glimpses of that brings me the most joy. I was on cloud 9 all night last night. I was gleaming with energy and just so much fun. And that's the work we're doing, is to bring those resources together from people that love culture.
So, several things I'd love to ask you about. A lot of our listeners already are running businesses and they may be working with teams. So, how do you build your team, and what are some tips that you might provide about working remotely? What's worked and what hasn't worked for you?
A good tech stack. Man, a good tech stack really is helpful. Project management. We work on the country that we're releasing in 2 months. So we're like working 2 months ahead of time, which can be challenging, specifically when you have an international team, different time zones. As the founder, I'm working from like typically 7 to 11 at night, and then at least 5, 6 in the morning to 10 in the morning, just so I can get those different time zones. But what helps me is the project management system. I can log in there, see what needs updated. It moves it into my bucket if they need my help, if there's a blockage. So we use kind of a version of Monday mixed with Trello, depending on who's working on the projects. And what I cherish about my management style is anytime we onboard someone, I ask them to rank their 10 duties loosely, like depending on just 10 different tasks from 1 to 10. And what I use it as an opportunity to do is I take their 3 top tasks that they want to perform, and I take their 3 bottom tasks that they don't have much information on. So I can use that as a training and teaching moment to improve their day-to-day activities and styles and allow them to learn more. And then I take their 3 top things that they're really good at. Yeah. Will never forget when I was looking into using a tech stack for Global Sprouts. There was a company and their entire C-suite were men and women from all over the world that were from like 21 to 29. And I said, do you know what? At first, I thought I was going to hire people that had 20 years of experience. And I was like, no, we're a new company. We should teach the next generation of women to be bold and hustlers and understanding businesses. So we're going to hire people that might not necessarily have the skill set, but are a great fit for our team, because I can teach you how to use tech stacks. I can train you. I can provide resources, but I can't make you a great fit for our team. So finding someone that's a great fit, that is trainable, that wants to learn, that's motivated, that isn't scared to mess up, that's fearless in that way. Those are the types of people I want to hire to bring us to the next level.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think, I've always felt the same way. You can usually train to skill, but attitude and mindset are much tougher, I think, to change and probably not going to change. So I have to ask you, a lot of what you're building is around your love of travel. And so you bring in a lot of these people that you bring in, they're from all over the world, right? That's how do you find them? Do you travel and meet people to find them? I mean, is that part of what you get to do with your company or?
It is. So for example, we actually hired 2 women in the Philippines. We pay them fair living wages, no different than we would pay in the States. We make sure that is one of our priorities. And next summer, we're actually partnering with our nonprofit, and we're going to go out to the Philippines and visit them, bring goodies, and then we're going to hop over to Guam and see our family over there. But it is, what was the question?
Well, I'm just wondering if you reach people through social media or if you, or if you use some kind of agency. How do you find people? Because you're looking for a very unique kind of person, right, to help you build these in each of the countries.
LinkedIn is really good, even for international hires. I like LinkedIn. I found some really great hires on Fiverr too. I think Fiverr can definitely be a hit or miss, but if you're asking the right questions and you have a good screener, that's a good resource. As much as I hate to say this, because being on the other side of the screen, if you're applying for jobs, I know a bunch of listeners are entrepreneurs, but on the other side, everyone's like, it's your network, ask your network, ask your network. But being a world traveler, having connections in other countries has been super helpful, because someone always knows someone that needs a job. 9 times out of 10, I found. And I need someone in those countries to be authentic. Great example is the Philippines box. We were going to add in Jackstones, but the Jackstones were an American game that came to the Philippines. I would have never known that. I did so much research and was like, Jackstones, great product. And Ryle was like, no, that's an American game. Let's do Lotto Lotto. So using your network is so important, and just spreading the word. Making LinkedIn posts, not necessarily about hiring for a job, but asking the questions that you would ask a job applicant and seeing who's commenting on there. And that's really how I have a LinkedIn network I have 5,000 connections, I think. And so I really utilize that as my go-to.
What's your marketing strategy for selling your product and getting it out there? Do you use social media? Do you have other strategies?
Yeah. So we do, our paid budget is $1,500 a month. And we scale that up and down depending on how the ads are going, and the ROAS, depending on different ad creatives. We have a lot of lead magnets on Pinterest. So every printable, we wanted to have accessible resources. In exchange for that, we have emails. We do retargeting lookalike audiences based on our email lists, which are very impactful. We've done a few homeschool conventions and reading conventions. To be honest, those are running $2,000, $2,500 for each of them, with the travel and all of that. And I think I'd rather spend that on paid marketing to reach a broader audience than just a siloed homeschool convention. I don't love trade shows. I've never loved trade shows. What I found is I spend $2,000 and then I love talking to the vendors. I just want to know everyone else's business. So I determined that I'm probably better just attending a conference or a trade show than having a booth at one of those, or a speaking event. I will speak all day long on my story and what Global Sprouts can do to help other families and school systems and educators and teachers. But I want that one-on-one connection outside of selling. I don't love selling. It's one of not my best traits. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress, but I'm just not a seller. I like to sell my story and have supporters that way. And I think that's impactful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, we live in a world, I think today where we're selling it, we can sell in a different way, especially with really good content and storytelling. So, you're figuring a lot of this out as you go. I know you've been doing this for 10 months. And, what is your vision, for how many countries now do you have, and what's your vision, and what's on your bucket list for your own travel and for your company as well?
Yeah. So we have 12 countries right now. Six of those are smaller cultures. For example, Lesotho is this tiny kingdom in the middle of South Africa that no one probably knows about, maybe one person that I found. And the culture is so beautiful. So that's one of our smaller cultures. So 12 so far. I'm hoping to get to 36. And then launching board games for older kids because older kids also want to know about cultures, but the kids are a little bit too young for them. We unfortunately had a Turkey, Greece, and Cyprus trip planned for October that I had canceled because it was a 10-hour flight and not one part of me wanted to be in the back of a plane with a 2-year-old for 10
Right.
hours. So we nixed that one, but we are going to go to the Virgin Islands since that is one of our cultures and meet with our cultural ambassador and enjoy that next February. And we're going to Mexico in January to meet our cultural ambassador there. So we have a few trips planned for the company and for Slater to enjoy the world. And honestly, in the next 3 or so years, I would love for there to be a cartoon show featuring Globy, our mascot, that becomes the cultural cartoon like Dora was for me growing up and teach kids about the world. And that's the path we're moving forward on.
What a great vision, and I'm sure you've already started looking into how to make that happen, but I'm sure there's gonna be some challenges along the way, but what a great vision.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
always a challenge. And the video editing and video design is something that I'm not comfortable with at all. So I typically like to put my thoughts down on paper in a way that I can show what I'm looking for and then have the strategist on the other side say, okay, we can do this or we can't do that. But video, I'm like totally left field. I'm hoping AI will increase in the next year or so so I can tell AI what I'm looking for and see what it comes up with.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what we can do with AI. So I wanted to ask you, do you have a daily ritual or a habit that keeps you grounded and helps you on your entrepreneurial journey?
I do. I did 75 hard like 5 years ago, and I did take a few things away from there. Is I have the 5-year memory book, which is really cool for entrepreneurs. I highly recommend it. You can get it on Amazon. It's like maybe like an inch and a half of space for every day for 5 years. So every morning I write what I'm doing for that day, or if I forgot the day before, I'll go back and write what I did that day. And then I read the last 4 years. I'm on the 5th year this year, which is wild. And so I can look back on the last 4 years, and 4 years ago, I had the fitness studio. So it's really cool being able to read how life has changed on the exact day from 4 years prior. I do that every morning. I read at least one chapter of a motivational book. Right now, I'm reading The Diary of a CEO chapter by chapter. It's a great read. It is motivational. It's super helpful. I have a whiteboard on my mirror in my bathroom and I write my goals and I do a check-in of where I'm at, what I have to do. That's professionally and personally. I have one side, my husband has the other, so we can kind of check in on what everyone's working on. And I just do my mantras. I mentioned earlier, like I'm grateful that my legs are working. I herniated my back 4 months postpartum. So I always say I'm grateful that my back's in better shape. I didn't have to have surgery. Thank you for letting me move. I try to get in one workout a day, preferably in the morning, so it energizes me. And then I drink my tea at nighttime. I don't consume caffeine, so I can't really say I drink coffee, but yeah.
I'm a tea drinker too, so I get it.
Ooh. I'll have to send you my recommendation. I have a good
Yeah,
one.
that'd be great. That'd be great. This has been, I love your story. I love the way that you got to where you are. I think, we talked about the fact that we're both here in Tampa. So I think we need to get you back on the show and kind of see where what's happening. Cause I know there's a lot happening day to day. But before I let you go, today, Whitney, and get back to your business and all the work and being mom and all the things that you're doing all day. If you had one piece of advice that to give our audience, maybe something you wish you had known, maybe before you started your first business, or something you've learned along the way, what would that one piece of advice be?
Said it a few times already, but find your efficiency and make your decision.
That's great advice. You got to make a lot of decisions, right? Figure out how to do it. Become a good decision maker.
So many. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Whitney, this has been amazing. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I wish you well and your company well, and I look forward to seeing your growth and all the success that you have along the way.
Thank you so much for having me, Rebecca, and we'll see each other in person soon.
Yeah, we're here in Tampa together. Take care.
You too.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The In Factor. If you were inspired by Whitney's story, I hope you'll share this episode with someone who would benefit from her message, whether it's a fellow entrepreneur, a parent, or an educator who believes in the power of early global learning. And if you haven't already, please be sure to follow us on Instagram and connect with me on LinkedIn so you don't miss updates, especially as we get ready to launch the InFactor Plus. And if you're looking to dive deeper into building your own entrepreneurial mindset, you can find my books and other resources at Dr. Rebecca White, and that's drrebeccawhite.com. Until next time, keep learning, stay open, and don't be afraid to explore the edges. That's often where the magic happens.